experience life at its best. Now, join Marilyn and make this the best day of your life.
You know, I believe God wants every day of our lives to be the best. I believe when we take Jesus into our life, when we take His Word into our life, when we pray and put Him number one, that He can do all kinds of things in our daily living. Even in the time of crises, He can take it and reverse the curse and turn it around and cause it to bless us. I'm so glad we know the Lord. I tell you, if we didn't have Him in this life, we would be hopeless. But as it is, we have Him and we are full of hope. And today we're going to look at why we're full of hope. We're going to look at the power of the blood of Jesus Christ. Now be patient with me at the beginning of this study and don't race your engine, and please understand where I'm coming from. Because what I'm doing is laying a real good foundation for the blood and the blood sacrifice. And I shared with you the other day that, you know, the Bible is like a big puzzle. You get some pieces out here, they're the straight edges, you get the corners and you kind of get the overall picture. But then the more you read it and go over it and over it and over it and over it, the more you get the pieces that go inside and how it all flows together. Now what we are doing is getting some outer edges of the puzzle of the blood covenant. So that's why I said be patient. You know, you say, well, some of this just seems so basic and so elementary, but it's very important. We looked yesterday and we saw how that Adam and Eve had to be clothed with skins with sin after they had sinned. Blood had to be shed. Then we looked at Cain and Abel. Abel's sacrifice was accepted. Why? Because it had blood in it. Today we're going to look at Noah. Noah knew and understood the blood covenant, and that it was through the shedding of blood there would be remission of sins. So all of this was leading up to the Lamb in Exodus 12, which is beautiful. So all of these, remember, we're just getting the outline of it, but it just gets better and better and better. And there's some new things you've never heard that you're just going to love. You say, Marilyn, you don't know that. Yes, I do know that. I'm just sure some of this you haven't heard. So you just stay with me every day. And above all, get the outline of the material I'm teaching on. Now these outlines are taken from my personal notes. This one is called The Power of the Blood of Jesus Christ. His blood is so powerful, and you need to understand it. And as I said, this will be on every lesson this month. So not only will you see it at the foundation, you will see as this revelation unfolds and unfolds and unfolds, and I'm going to tell you the picture or the puzzle will begin to go together for you. Now it's free, so we've kept it as simple as we can. You need to write today and get it. Write today. It takes a little time to get in the mail to you, so the faster you write to me, the faster I can send it to you. Don't forget the power of the blood of Jesus Christ. Now today we are going to look at Noah. But in order to look at Noah, we have to kind of go back and look at his family tree. And in looking at his family tree, we will understand the unfolding of the blood covenant. And we'll see that the blood covenant always has to do with the family. Isn't that encouraging? The blood covenant is to embrace my family too. The blood covenant is to embrace your family too. Now here we have a man called Enoch. And it said Jared, looking in Genesis 5, verse 19, and Jared lived after he begat Enoch 800 years and begat sons and daughters, and all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Didn't they live long lifespans? And Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah, and Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Now Enoch did not serve God at the very beginning. It said he lived 65 years before he had Methuselah. But there is a turning point in his life, because the next verse said he walked with God after he begat Methuselah. So what turned him on to the Lord? You say, well, it must have been the child, because it's after he has the child that he gets so turned on. Undoubtedly, God spoke to Methuselah, or spoke to Enoch and said, I want you to call your son Methuselah. Why would he want him to call him Methuselah? This means, listen, when this child dies, the deluge will come. Now, what would that mean to Enoch? Because it has never rained, it has never flooded. You know, I doubt that he's ever even seen a boat. And so here, God is saying, when this boy dies, I'm going to send a deluge of water upon this earth. Now, that was so heavy on Enoch's life, so heavy on it, that he really took care of that boy. I know he probably thought every time he fell down, don't let him die, get him up, because when he dies, we're going to have a judgment, we're going to have a flood. So he cared for that child, and he had other sons and daughters, but this child in particular was very important because of the name that God had given him. Now, for 300 years, Enoch walked with God, and one day, God just said, you know, closer to my house than your house, why don't we come home to my house? And Enoch was translated. And it said it was by faith he was translated. So evidently he had been believing for this, and he had never seen it. See, when we look at the dispensations of faith, it is amazing how Abel believed for blood sacrifice. That's really all they knew. Here is Methuselah and Enoch. Enoch is believing that there will be a flood because God said it. He doesn't know anything about it. You know, he's never even seen rain. I am doubtful that they had ever seen the sun. You say, well, why would you think that? Because the Bible tells us that the earth had a firmament of water around it. And so that firmament of water kept the sun's rays, you know, where they would not burn man. It didn't rain. It said the earth was watered by mists. So mist would go up from the earth. And so it's a real different climate, probably kind of like a semi-tropical climate. But God is saying it's going to rain. So that would mean he would have to pierce that firmament of water and cause that water to come down upon them. He said he'll open the windows of heaven, and that's where it is, that firmament of water. So he starts walking with God, knowing that judgment is going to come upon the world. And he walks those 300 years, lives 365 years altogether, which would be like, you know, one day for each year. And then it says he walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So as he walked with God, his faith grew. Now, you know, translation faith is pretty heavy faith, isn't it? I mean, that's dynamite. But remember, he had 300 years to build that faith. So let that be an encouragement to you also. Another thing about Methuselah, I believe he was a type of the rapture before God's judgment upon the earth, because he was taken out before the flood. And then in Jude, he prophesies of the Lord's return, and he is coming with 10,000 saints. So he's very much involved with the catching away and the coming back of the Lord. Now, then it said Methuselah lived 187 years, and he begat Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begat Lamech 782 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. He lived the longest of all men. Now, in that timing, let's keep in mind, the year that he died, Methuselah died, the flood came. But in that timing, Noah has been building an ark for over 120 years. He's been preaching, his boys have been preaching, but he wasn't only preaching. So was Methuselah, and so was Enoch. And they were calling the people to repentance, and the people were ignoring them. Now remember, when he dies, that's when the deluge is to come. And the year that he died, if you check it out, you will find the flood came that year. Now Noah's father, Lamech, lived 182 years and begat a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. And so he said, he prophesied over him. He said he's going to give us some rest and some comfort. And because Noah would serve God, he would be the only, he and his family would be the only ones who would be preserved. So that would be the rest and comfort. Plus the curse is lifted from the ground after the flood. So that all had to do in Noah's day. But notice, Lamech prophesied it and spoke the word, and it came to pass in his children's lives. Now, Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years and begat sons and daughters, and all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So here he is 500 years old, and things are going to start to go bad. But God is going to use Noah as a rescue for the world, the whole earth. It came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. Now, this is my opinion. You can feel free to disagree, except, of course, you know I will think you're wrong. No, I don't want you to think that I just think I'm an expert. But I believe the sons of God were fallen angels. I believe they saw the daughters of men and cohabited with them. And when God saw that, see, that would have had mixed seed, because that would have satanic seed in with man's seed, and that would corrupt the seed of the Messiah. So I'm sure the devil thought, you know, there won't be a Messiah, I've corrupted the seed. And God has a real reaction to what's going on. The Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And he is saying, I'm not always going to fool around with him. And in 120 years, judgment is going to fall. So he names the timing. Now from this time on, we're going to see that Noah began to prepare the ark. But let's read a little more. There were giants in the earth in those days. Where did they come from? They were born out of this union between the sons of God and the daughters of men. And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which are of old, men of renown. So this intermingling brought forth these giants. And so the world was just in a mixed up state. And you know, sometimes when I read what the scientists are doing, I think that same thing. Wow, you know, they're trying to breed people in laboratory tubes. It's just bad news. God is showing us that he is in control. And he is showing us that it's going to be his blood covenant and his blood that we can have peace in. And the word blood, remember, is mentioned over 700 times from the book of Genesis to Revelation. Now, God is about to do something upon the earth. He is disgusted with the earth because men and women have conceived giants from fallen angels, from intercourse with fallen angels. Isn't that awful? Say yuck twice. Yuck, yuck. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping things and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. He said, I'm just going to destroy them. I am sorry I ever made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, favor. Now I'm going to show you in a few moments why and how he found favor. Because you're going to think, my, it took you a long time to tell all this. But again, folks, we're laying foundation, and I ask you to be very patient with me. So he found grace, favor in the eyes of the Lord, and these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man, a perfect man, that means mature, in his generation, and Noah walked with God. Another thing about Noah is that none of his seed had cohabited with angels, so you don't have that angelic seed mixed in with human seed. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So corruption and violence on the earth bring God's judgment. I mean, violence is going to come to an end. He won't have it. God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Now, here's what he's going to do. He will destroy them with the earth, because the water that is held down in the center of the earth will be broken up. Those fountains will come up. That beautiful firmament of water that is around the earth, that will break, and that water will come down, and the earth will literally be baptized in water. And so he's saying, you know, I am going to cleanse the earth with water. Now that's Genesis, but in Revelation, he will cleanse it with fire. It's prophesied by Peter. And it's a very similar thing. Because of man's sin, God said, I'm going to bring judgment, and I'm going to clean this place up. Now, Noah is not appointed unto wrath, nor are his sons or their wives appointed unto wrath. So God tells him what to make to keep himself safe. And he said, make an ark. Only put one door in it and one window. And told him where the door was to be, and the window was to be at the top, and the very top, so they could only look upward. Evidently, if they look outward, they'd go crazy seeing what was going on. Now he said, I'm going to bring great judgment upon the earth, but I want you to bring your wives and your sons into the ark, and then of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort, shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind, 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee all the food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah according to everything that God had told him to do. Now, please note what he took in. He took in clean animals, and he took in animals that they would just simply eat for food. What are the clean animals for? For the shedding of blood for their sins. See, we have to have an atonement for sin, because Noah is a sinner. His sons are a sinner. Their wives are sinners. There has to be. So he is keeping the blood covenant. What gave him grace in God's eyes? The blood covenant. What gives you grace in God's eyes? The blood covenant. You believe in the blood of Jesus Christ, that he had to go to the cross for you. If you'd been the only person on earth, he would have died for you. What are we getting out of all this? The blood covenant. You know, Adam and Eve were clothed with animals that God prepared. Abel killed a lamb that pleased God. Now Noah is taking clean lambs in, not to eat, but to sacrifice. Why? Because he must have a blood covenant in order to enter into what God has and for his family to have the blessings of God. There must be a covenant relationship, and all of it is on the blood. Now, when God speaks to Noah, and this is chapter 7, the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house unto the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Now he said, Noah, I want you to come in, and who else? Your house. Because covenant relationship always involves your children too. Isn't that encouraging? So he didn't just say, no, I really like you. I like you best. I don't like the way Shem looks. You know, his olive complexion doesn't appeal to me. He didn't say that. He said, bring your house on. And it's the first time the verb come is ever in the Bible, and it's such a beautiful invitation word. Come thou and all thy house. I think that's what Jesus says. Come thou and all thy house. All your aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins. Come on. I want them to be in the covenant. So he takes in all of the animals, and Noah did everything that he was commanded to do. And once they are inside, it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were upon the earth. And so as they're inside, it begins to rain and rain and rain and rain and rain and rain and rain. And now, after 7 days, the earth is covered with water. Now, here he is inside. How can he be safe inside? Because he has a sacrifice inside with him. That's right. How can we know we're safe? How can we know our children are safe in such a day? Because they're in covenant relationship. We have a sacrifice. Who's the sacrifice? Jesus. What was the problem between Cain and Abel? They came to worship. They knew God. They came to the right place, came to the right day, but Cain came with the wrong sacrifice. When we got Jesus, honey, we got the right sacrifice. We got the right one. And so we are safe in him no matter what the storm is out there, and we need to claim the blood over our children and claim their safety too. So there they are in that thing all that time, and then God speaks to Noah, and God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, you and your son and your wife's sons with you, and bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Now watch what he did. Watch what Noah did, and what is number one with him. Please watch, please watch, please watch. And Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. So the family are safe. They've come through safely. Why? They're in covenant. God entered into a covenant with Noah. Every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds went forth out of the ark. And Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. What's he saying? I'm in a blood covenant relationship. He's talking blood covenant. And that's the first thing he did. He didn't run out and build a house. That's not what he did first. He didn't run out and say, we've got to put up a tent first. What did he run out and do first? Altar. The blood. Because he knew the blood would speak to the Father. He knew the blood would give him favor. He knew there was life in the blood, the life of the flesh. He knew that there was no forgiveness of sin without the shedding of blood. He knew why he had those clean animals there. They were for sacrifice. He believed in the blood. What saved Noah and his family? They believed in the blood. What saves you and your family? Your faith in the blood of Jesus Christ, and nothing short of it. Now, God blesses Noah, and he begins to put something that's kind of heavy about blood. He blessed Noah and his sons and said, Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. Talks about the fear, but then he says something about the blood. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, ye shall not eat. And surely your blood of your lives will I require at the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man, at the hand of every man's brother will I require it. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for the image of God made he man. And be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth, and multiply therein. So where did God put the emphasis again? He put the emphasis on blood to Adam and Eve. He put the emphasis on blood to Abel. He's put the emphasis on blood now to Noah and his children. He said it's the blood. And without the blood, you do not have anything. You must have that blood. And of course, it's getting ready, taking us on down to the Passover lamb, and then the lamb that John the Baptist sees, and he says, behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. Let me just give you a little quick review. It will encourage you because we've kind of hit some heavy things right in here. Do you know the first lamb we see is for one person, Abel. He killed a lamb for himself. No question, it was of God. The second lamb that we see is for the nation, and it's in Exodus 12. And of course, or for the family. God always has won the lamb for the family. The third lamb that we see is in Leviticus and Exodus, and they sacrificed a lamb in the morning and at evening for the nation. So the lamb is for an individual, the lamb is for a family, the lamb is for a nation. But when John the Baptist saw him, he said, behold the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. He saw the lamb for the whole world. So see, we're starting to see the unfolding of how this goes and what God is doing. So the first thing that he did, he talked to him about blood. Don't shed blood or you're going to be in trouble. The blood is going to speak for you. Whatever you do, don't speak blood. And then he tells him, I am entering into a covenant with you. And that covenant had to be because of the blood. So what are we in today? We are in a covenant because of the blood. What does it protect? Our children. Our children. So the blood covenant is the key to the Old and the New Testament for both you and me. It's great to study the blood covenant, isn't it? We're going to continue this study tomorrow, and it just gets better and better and better because you get more pieces together. But I want to encourage you to write me a question that's on your heart. Maybe there's some really special question that is just bugging you and bothering you, and you need an answer. Why don't you write me, Marilyn Hickey, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711. That's Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711. I love to hear from you. It's neat to get mail. You know that. So write me a neat question, and I'm going to tell you the Lord will help me and my team to get you a neat answer. Here's a question. Dear Marilyn, what can I do? My work schedule is keeping me away from church, and I desperately need the fellowship and teachings. Do you have any suggestion as what I can do to change these things? Well, I think I would change jobs. You know, I would put God first. I feel that church is very important. I see some Christians that it doesn't seem to bother them all to miss, but I think it's dangerous because pretty soon, as an adult, if you don't put emphasis on church attendance, your children won't, and then your grandchildren won't, and you'll say, what happened? My kids don't seem very turned on to the Lord. It started back when you didn't put the emphasis on church where you needed to have it. So it is important that you be in fellowship. And as I said, I would look for another job or go to them and say, look, I have to have Sundays off or Sunday mornings or Sunday nights, one or the other. And I have to be in the house of the Lord. It says, as we see the day approaching, that we should exhort one another, that we should be in church. So I am exhorting you to get in church and let it be a real part of your life. Wally and I were talking, it's strange I get this question because my husband and I were talking this morning about a family that we haven't seen in church. And, you know, we said, well, they could be going to another church, but I really don't think they are. If they were going to another church, that'd be great. I don't think they're going to church at all. And I can remember this man writing me and telling me how much he loved Happy Church. I can remember him saying how the highest spiritual time of his life while he was in the church and active in ministry there. And now he's not in at all. Now what's going to happen? He has 5 girls. His girls are going to say, well, Dad doesn't go to church. Dad doesn't think it's important. Must not be important. His wife will think, my husband doesn't think it's important. And if you don't think it's important, I'm going to tell you something. Your children won't think it's important. So, is that what you want? Do you want your children to grow up thinking church isn't necessary? Well, if you don't think it's necessary, they won't. I tell you, our kids, we will reap in their lives what we have sown. And we sow this kind of thing of instability with church attendance, we will reap it. So I really encourage you that you need fellowship. You need to be in the house of the Lord. You need to be giving to the body needs to be giving to you. You need to feel very much a part of a local fellowship. It's Bible. It says, they that are planted in the house of the Lord shall be fat and flourishing, and shall bring forth fruit in their old age. That means they're not church hopping. In their old age, they're still in church. They're still bringing forth fruit. See, God's Word teaches great blessing. And I, again, being a pastor's wife as long as I've been, I've seen the long pull with people who stay in church with their children. Then their children grow up and want to be a part of a church and want to be committed to God. But the ones who are frivolous about it, they lose their children to the world, and then they come and cry on our shoulder, oh, what happened, what happened? How could the devil do it? Well, the devil didn't do it all. You did some of it. You did some of it. So stability in church is powerful and very, very important to you and to me. Well, every day we take time for question and answer, and you need to take some time today for a question and answer that is on your heart. So write me today, and that's Marilyn Hickey, and I will be delighted to send it to you. You know, it's Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711. So write me, and we want to be a blessing to you, but we want our answers to come out of God's Word. Say, today is the best day of my life because Jesus Christ lives big in me today.
This can be the best day of your life. Join author and teacher Marilyn Hickey as she presents the principles of successful Christian living. By drawing close to God and studying His Word, you can experience life at its best. Now, join Marilyn and make this the best day of your life.
You know, it's wonderful to know that God loves us so much that He gets a relationship with us where He enters into a covenant with us. You know, covenant relationship is very important, and it really talks about fellowship and agreement from two sides. What is covenant anyway? If you study covenant, you will see that it is not a new thing, that people have done this for centuries. So when you talk covenant to many people in the Far East, immediately they pick it up. They know what a covenant is. You know, I understand that in years past in Norway, men would make a covenant with each other, and they would literally dig holes in the ground and lay down in the earth, and they would take a little blood from this man's arm and a little blood from this man's arm and mix it together and put it in wine, and each of them would taste it a little bit and then lie back down, and they would cover them with dirt for a while, and they were saying, we're in covenant relationship and we would die for each other. You know, and always you had the commingling of blood with it, always. So, and what did that say? That said that those two men loved each other so much, they were in covenant relationship, that they would die for each other, that they would pay each other's bills, that they would take care of each other's children if anything happened to the other one. So covenant relationship was when where there was the cutting of blood. Covenant literally means to cut, and there was the commingling of the blood, commingling of the natures, and enter into the swearing of an oath from both sides that they were in this covenant and that they would, again, take care of one another. Now, when we begin to see covenant in the Old Testament, we see more than one. You know, we see the Palestinian covenant, we see the covenant that God made with Noah, put the rainbow in the sky. But we are going to look at the covenant with Abraham and how God cut that covenant. And, you know, basically we're not just doing a study of covenants, we're doing a study of the blood. But blood is so important in the covenant that we have to bring covenant and blood together, because covenant, as I said, even means to cut, or the spurting forth of blood. Now, before we get into the lesson today, and I can tell I'm about to get into it, I want to remind you that there is an outline of all the material that I will be teaching on the blood covenant. It's called The Power of the Blood of Jesus Christ, because all of this teaching is based basically on Jesus Christ being the Lamb who takes away the sin of the world. Jesus kept the covenant for us because we couldn't keep it. He died for us. He shed His blood for us. Our blood had sin in it. His blood was sinless. So all of it is picturing Jesus Christ. And that's why we're just going through it piece by piece by piece in the Old Testament to get a really good, strong foundation so you will understand what the covenant is and how powerful the blood of Jesus Christ is in your life today. And we'll look at some very practical aspects of it too. But this will be the outline of all my personal notes. Now you need to send for it, and the good news is it's free. Isn't that good news? I always like things that are free. I'm sure you do too. Free is the best bargain there is, and you'll like it. I assure you, you'll like it. Now we have looked at Cain and Abel, the shedding of blood with the skins, or I should say Adam and Eve, the shedding of blood with the skins. We've looked at Abel, the shedding of blood of the lamb. And we've looked at Noah and how he brought the clean animals out. First thing he did, he shed blood so that God would know they were in covenant relationship together, and it was that blood that kept him safe, kept his sons safe from the terrible flood, and would continue to keep them safe. They knew what blood covenant was. They knew the cleansing and forgiveness of sins had to be with the blood. So, you know, this, you say, how did they know? They didn't read. See, it was passed on by word of mouth from family to family to family, because God always wanted the family to be in the covenant relationship. In fact, these things were not written down until Moses. So we're looking way down into Exodus, you know, to really see where it's written down. But everyone said if you want to be in a covenant with God, there has to be the shedding of blood. Now, each one, it got a little clearer, because when you look at Adam and Eve, you just see skins, and you see the skins the animals must have died in order for them to have skins. The skins were used to cover them. So blood is a covering for us because of our sins that separate us from God. We see with Abel, it has to be a lamb. We see with Noah, it has to be clean animals, and an altar, a beautiful altar is involved, and that it is you can renew a covenant as well as enter into one, because God made a covenant with Noah, and then Noah renewed it himself with the shedding of blood of those animals. And I know that Noah knew that's what kept him safe all during that flood, was that he had those clean animals, and when he sacrificed their blood, that blood would speak to God and it would speak mercy for him. But now we look at Abraham, and we get into a further covenant, and I especially like this because we get into the covenant of the seed and of the family. A lot of times we think, well, covenant, you know, that is just for the person involved. But God has always wanted the whole covenant to be for the family itself. He's always wanted the covenant in. You can never go into any of this that you don't see family covenant. And the reason I hit that so hard is some of you have unsaved loved ones. God knows how to get your unsaved loved ones. I'm going to tell you, if you keep watching every weekday, you're going to see something so dynamite about God's covenant for your family. It will be so good that you'll feel like you've been raptured almost when you hear it. Now let's look at the family covenant. In verse 9 of Genesis 17, now we're at Abraham in Genesis, and God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generation. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a token of the covenant between me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generation, he that is born in the house or bought with money, or any stranger which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh. You know, it isn't like the rainbow in the sky for Noah, but it will be in your flesh. That would say you belong to me. And the uncircumcised man, child whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. Now look at who is circumcised. The people that are born in the house, the slaves that belong there, and anyone that comes to live in that house that's a stranger. All men in your household are to enter into a covenant. And if they don't keep that covenant, then God has no responsibility to take care of them and be a blessing to them. None at all. So this covenant that he is saying for Abraham is to be to Abraham and all of his male seeds, and it's to keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. That says we belong to God. We have a living God. Now that covenant is very interesting, because undoubtedly the 8th day every daddy, every mama got their boy down there to be circumcised. And see, 8 is the number of new beginnings. So when you enter into covenant relationship, you get a new beginning. Oh, you get a new beginning. And so the things of the past, you say they're only 8 days old, but the things that they would inherit from the past, the background of whatever it might be, was changed, because when you came into circumcision, you were marked for God. And God is a creator of new beginnings, and God can go before you and make your way straight. Now this was so clear that even the children of Israel, when they were in captivity, like Moses' mother, you know, Moses' mother saw to it that her little boy was circumcised. Her baby, the 8th day, was circumcised. Now they live in slavery. You say, how do you know that child was circumcised? Because she wanted him in covenant relationship. He's to be the deliverer. He's definitely to be in covenant relationship. And when that little boy was put in that ark and sailed down the Nile, when the Egyptian princess, the daughter of the Pharaoh, opened him up, she said, oh, he is a Hebrew. How did she know? He was marked. He was circumcised. She knew he was in covenant relationship. See, they marked their children for God from the 8th day. And folks, I want to tell you something. You need to mark yours too. And you need to tell the devil, my children do not belong to you. They belong to God. In Psalms, it talks about our children being our arrows, and that they are to be fast and swift, and that they are to sit in the gates of the enemy. We need to mark our children that they are not the devil's food, but they are God's food, and they are signs and wonders, and they will sit in the gates of authority. The devil will not sit in authority over them. See, circumcision meant my children are marked from God from here on. When we take a baby and we dedicate that baby in our churches, we are saying this child is marked for God. We give this child back to God. This child belongs to God. It has God's sign on it in a sense. And devil, just know that this child is under the blood. It's in a relationship of covenant because the parents have dedicated the child to God. So he is saying, I want you and I want all your seed to be in covenant relationship with me, in covenant relationship. Then he goes on, and I want to look in Genesis 21, verse 4. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now, as soon as Isaac is born, what does Abraham do to him? He circumcises him. Why? Because he wants his child marked for God. And this is a miracle child. You know, they didn't know they could even have a child. So circumcision was saying to Isaac as a baby, was saying to all the people around, my son belongs to God. He is marked for God. Abraham circumcised Ishmael. Because remember, circumcision was for any male in your household, that they would come under the blood and be protected by the blood, that God was in covenant and he had to take care of them, and it was very important that he did it. Now we're going to continue with covenant, and I'm just going to take some overall pictures that have to do with Abraham. And we've talked circumcision, but I'm going to talk some other things that have to do with that covenant. Now when Abraham came into the promised land, you know, he had some big problems with various people. And so he went to one of the men that he lived with in the same vicinity, and he said, I want to enter into a covenant with you, because he said, your men are stopping up my wells that I've dug, and they're being a problem to me. And so the man said, all right, we will enter into a covenant, and this covenant was with Abimelech. Now, the reason I'm showing this is because every piece of covenant gets a little clearer and a little clearer about the importance of the blood and what we have in God and what we can claim in that covenant. The more you claim your covenant relationship, the more you're going to walk in the victory of what God has for you. Now, it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spake unto Abraham, saying, God is with thee in all that thou doest. Now therefore swear unto me here by God that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son, nor my son's son, but according to the kindness that I have done unto thee, thou shalt do unto me, and to the land wherein thou hast sojourned. Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of a well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I wot not who hath done this thing, neither didst thou tell me, neither yet heard I of it, but today. Now, he said, this is not going to happen anymore. We're going to enter into a covenant. That means I agree to take care of you, and you agree to take care of me. I agree to take care of your children, you agree to take care of my children. And Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them unto Abimelech, and both of them made a covenant. And Abraham took 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And he said, what are these? And he said, these are to show a witness between me and you that we're in covenant relationship. So we got the lamb again, and we got the shedding of blood. Then after he did that, he called the place where they were swearing and entering into the covenant Beersheba, and he planted trees there. So we see in covenant relationship there is the shedding of the blood of a lamb, and we see a tree is planted, or it could be multiple trees. And this is carried on for centuries by tribes in Africa. You know, they still do this. So, you know, you say covenant to them, they really understand what it is. Then later, we see that Jacob enters into a covenant, and we see a few more pieces of Jacob and the covenant. And it is to do with Laban. You know, when Jacob leaves Laban, he leaves very wealthy, leaves with his wives and his children, is going back to the promised land at the command of the Lord. But Laban catches up with him and said, why are you doing this? You're taking my wealth, you're taking my daughters, you're taking my grandchildren. And God speaks to Laban in a dream and says, you touch him, honey, and you're a dead man. Don't you get into anything. And Jacob knows he's not to get into a fight. So they enter into a covenant. And they put a pile of stones, and they sit there and eat bread. So they say, we have rocks here, and these rocks say, we are in covenant relationship, and they bear witness of our covenant relationship, and we're eating bread together of it. And then they use a term called Mizpah. The Lord watched between me and thee while we are absent one from another. But it isn't quite that sweet. It means if you ever cross over these rocks and come after me, God's going to get you. And so theirs was a covenant of protection, for future protection. It was sealed with the rocks and with the bread. So we have trees, we have lambs, we have rocks, we have bread. Then we go down to the covenant between David and Jonathan. Now they, again, entered into a covenant relationship, and it's in, like, I think 2 Samuel 18, 19, and 20. And they said, we're going to be friends. And they exchanged robes, they exchanged girdles, they exchanged weapons. So we see a further thing. And then they said, if either one of us die, we will take care of each other's seed. So we see more in the covenant. We see robes and girdles and weapons, and I'll take care of your children if you die. Now let's look at all of this in Jesus, because every covenant really pictures the best covenant. What does New Testament mean? It means the new covenant. And it says it is a better covenant, better than anything else. Now what did Jesus do for us? He became the lamb. Abraham had to provide the lamb for his covenant, but Jesus became the lamb for ours. Abraham had to plant the trees. Jesus died on a tree. He died on the cross. Wow, he fulfilled that part of the covenant. What else? Well, he became the rock that would watch for us in protection. You know, he was, in a sense, our Mizpah. Not only on top of that, they ate bread. Jesus said, you eat bread. Eat my covenant. Eat my flesh. I'm life for you. So he became our bread of life. What else did he do? He said, you give me your filthy rags of righteousness, of unrighteousness, and I will give you my robe of righteousness. He said, you give me your girdle. He said, you know, because you need to gird up your loins, he said, of weakness, I will give you my girdle of strength. He said, you don't have any weapons, you're helpless against the devil. So I'll give you my weapons, I'll give you my name, the name of Jesus Christ. You can rout any devil with that. And he said, that name, everything will bow to that name. And he said, that will be the covenant. But that's not all. He said, and I want your children to be mine. Because in Acts 2, it says, the promise is unto you and to your children and your children's children, and as many as the Lord our God shall call. And so we see the covenant is a family covenant. Now what about the circumcision? How do we circumcise them? We say, well, circumcision today of the flesh doesn't mean that you belong to God, because hospitals circumcise male babies, and you know, what would women have to do with it? But in the New Testament, which is a better covenant, it says that we don't circumcise in the flesh, but God circumcises our hearts. And he takes the foreskin of unbelief off our hearts, and we know Jesus Christ as our personal Savior. And so what do? We claim our seed, that the promise is unto us and our children and our children's children and our great-grandchildren and so on. Because why? We are in covenant relationship. And as we claim them, God will do a work in them that will turn them around and give them a circumcised heart. You know what we basically do? We mark them. We say, you're marked for covenant relationship. You're marked. I've claimed you. I dedicated you to God as a baby. You know, the blood of Jesus is on you. You may not have applied it yet. You may not have been born again yet, but you belong in that covenant relationship. And we're going to see some wonderful things out of family covenant and how it comes to pass. Now, let's look at it. Let's look at Mephibosheth. David entered into a covenant with Jonathan that if anything happened to their children, to themselves, they would care for one another's children. So Jonathan was killed, you know, in a battle with the Philistines, Jonathan and Saul. David takes the throne. After he's been on the throne just a little while, he says, are there any seed left from Jonathan? Because I'm in covenant relationship. So he searches and listens, and they said, yeah, there is somebody. His name is Mephibosheth. Oh, Mephibosheth. That means a shameful thing. Said, yeah, he lives out in Lodabar. That means no place. And so David says, send for him. He's covenant seed. And see, some of our children, I tell you, they're shameful things. They're living in rebellion. They're out in no place. But folks, we belong to the Lord, and they are under covenant relationship. Don't you dare give up on them. You keep them marked with the blood of Jesus. Keep them marked. Keep them marked. They're marked. They belong in the household of faith. Your household does. That's covenant relationship. And so they found Mephibosheth, and when they brought him, poor thing, his feet were lame, you know, and he's coming from Lodabar, no place, and his name means shameful thing. You know, what can he ever do? He can't work for himself. He just, nothing, you know. Some nurse dropped him when he was a baby on his feet, and it hurt his feet, and he's crippled. And so he comes to David, and he said, I'm a dead dog. Why will you have anything to do with me? And see, sometimes we say about our children, oh, they're just dead dogs. Can God do anything? Yes, he can. Don't give up. They are to be a part of the covenant. And so David says, I have a covenant with your father. So don't say that you're a dead dog, a shameful thing, and you're from no place. You're from someplace, because your father and I have a covenant together. So he took Mephibosheth and restored all the lands that belonged to his grandfather Saul. So suddenly, overnight, Mephibosheth is very, very wealthy. And then David said to Mephibosheth, Mephibosheth, you're going to live in my house. He said, you're not going to have your own house. You're going to live in my house, and your feet are going to be under my table. And that's what God says about our seed. They may be out no place. They may be shameful. They may be dead dogs. But God can get hold of them, and he can bring them to the King of Kings, and he can restore everything that was taken away from them. And even the place where they are ashamed of their past, he will put their feet under his table. Remember when those feet went under the table, you couldn't see them anymore. They were covered with the King's table. He will cover their past, their shameful feet where they are walked, because they will sit under the King's table. And what will they eat? They will eat the King's bread. Why? Because you as a parent wouldn't give up on them, and you marked them for God, and you said they're in covenant relationship, and you've got a circumcised heart, and you belong to him. You're marked, and so is your household. Don't give up. I don't care where they are. I don't care what they're doing. God wants our children to be in, and I've seen the worst come to the Lord. I've seen God take the worst and put their feet under the King's table, and they eat the King's bread and love him and serve him. Well, this month we are really looking at the power of the blood, and that's just one aspect, and we're going to be going into some others that are just wonderful. But it is time for our question and answer. And maybe there's something special that is on your heart that you have a question about, and you just need an answer to it. Well, why don't you write me? And I promise you, if you tell me don't read it on television, I won't do it. And I have a team who will help me, and we'll keep it in confidence. Write me, Marilyn Hickey, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711. That's Marilyn Hickey, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711. And we'll be delighted to get our team together to pray and get an answer to the question that is really on your heart. Here is a question. Dear Marilyn, why have I lost the desire to keep using my gift of tongues? It feels like I'm making up words, and that's not real. Well, I think probably the honeymoon is over. You know, when we're first born again, you know how you feel the presence of God? And oh my, everything is so new and so fresh. You think, where's my Bible? Where's church? Where are Christians? And you just can't get enough. You are so hungry. But then after the newness kind of wears off, then comes the discipline and the commitment to that relationship. And if we don't make the discipline and commitment to the relationship, something can happen and we can get out of fellowship with God. So when we don't feel like reading the Bible, that doesn't mean we don't read it. When it doesn't seem that we get anything out of it, that doesn't mean we quit reading it. When we, don't feel like we get anything from praying, that doesn't mean God doesn't answer prayers. When we don't feel like going to church, we go anyway, because our commitment is beyond our feelings. That's the same with praying in tongues. Sometimes when you're first Spirit-filled, it's just ecstasy. You just live in the Spirit all the time. But what about when that wears off? Does it say you have to feel really good when you pray in tongues or nothing happens? Does it say, oh, praying in the Spirit, you'll always have goosebumps and chills will run up and down your spine? It doesn't say that. Paul just said, I thank my God, I pray with my understanding, and I pray in the Spirit both. I just do it. And so there are times, folks, when you are not going to feel anything. And those are the times you are obedient by faith to Him, and you just go ahead and pray in the Spirit. Does it say that you build yourself up on your most holy faith when you pray in the Spirit? That's what it says in Jude 20. Does it say you have to feel it? Doesn't say that. Does it say that when you pray in tongues it's a rest and a refreshing? Yes, it says that in Isaiah. Does it say you have to feel that it's a rest and a refreshing? No, it doesn't say that. You do it by faith. You are obedient. When you pray in the Spirit, will it reveal mysteries to you? It says, eye has not seen, ear not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man the things that God hath prepared for them that love Him. But He hath revealed them unto us by His Spirit. Will He, when we read the Word and we pray in the Spirit, will He still give us things, whether we feel it or not? Absolutely. Let me tell you, the biggest problem in this question is trying to walk by feelings instead of walk by faith. Someplace in your Christian walk, you're going to have to face it head on and say, am I going to be one that's moved by my emotions and my circumstances, and do I always have to have feelings, or am I going to be obedient to God regardless? When you become obedient to God regardless, that's when the blessings come. The newness is off. The honeymoon is over. But you just dig in and go on and pray in the Spirit anyway, and you claim the promises that tell you what you have. That is so important. When you pray in the Spirit, say this is a rest, this is a refreshing. Say that this is building you up on your most holy faith. Say that this is bringing revelation knowledge. Say that it helps you make spiritual